Hi, this is Jennetta Billhimer, and I'm here with What's All the Buzz About Homeschooling. I'm interviewing Kristi Dewsnup today, and I am so excited to have her here. Um, she she's been homeschooling actually for 16 years, and she has 6 children. Her kids were in the first grade, third grade, and fifth grade when she pulled them out of public school. And she can tell you about the reasons that she did that. And now 2 of them are college graduates. They're beautiful girls, wonderful girls. One of them taught my girls in clogging and gave them private lessons and everything. She's so talented and just amazing kids. Let's see. And she also has 2 granddaughters. She after sending 4 to college, she can honestly take it or leave it. Probably another whole discussion for sure. She says. Yes. And she says she doesn't have a college degree. In fact, she just has 2 semesters of college under her belt. And so we've kind of talked about this in some of the other videos, and she's going to talk about it also about why a college degree does not, how do you say it, does not necessarily prepare you to be a homeschool parent. And so she'll talk about that also. And besides that, she is the director of Snake River Academy, and that is a family school here in Twin Falls. We meet on Thursdays from 8:45 in the morning till noon, and it's so much fun. My kids will not let me not do it. That is what we're doing. They've decided. And let's see, each child gets to take 3 50-minute classes during that time. These are taught by the moms and the families enrolled, and we've got a 15-minute snack break before the last class, and then we have a devotional where we have a prayer, a song, the Pledge of Allegiance, and the Snake River Academy is for children who are from 1 all the way up to 18 years old. So let's see, and then the moms teach the classes, or the dads, and we have had some really, really fun classes. Even sometimes some of the older kids will take a class.
That's right.
I know that my daughter she's taught the drama class, and she loves it, and she's really good at it. And so giving her that leadership opportunity to work with the kids has been such a neat thing that she's done. And so anyway, without any further ado, I'm just so excited to welcome Kristi to this interview today. So
thank you,
Kristi, for being here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
You have so much experience to share, and you've really been in the trenches here for a long time, and you have quite a few children to have tried it out on. So tell us about your experience.
Well, it's been a great experience. It's been a really fun ride. It's been worthwhile all the way through the ups and downs. It's always worth it at the end of the day. My husband and I would never change that decision we made back in, when was it? 2004, I think it was. We would never go back and change that, ever. It really is the best decision we made for our family, and especially for each child. So we did, as you said earlier, we pulled them out. They had gone to public school. I was one of those moms that went in and volunteered in every class, every week, to try to help, to, facilitate learning, see what was going on, watch out for my own kids too. But It was kind of in volunteering in the classes that I realized this was just not a good place for the kids to be. There were so many more possibilities and so much more that they could learn and do in a fraction of the time. So,
weren't you a little bit afraid though that about your children hitting those benchmarks that they should be making? You know, they should be up to grade level.
So I'm a little bit opinionated, and anyone watching this knows me, so they'll be ready for all my opinions. I think benchmarks are baloney. I think standards are baloney. We all know that each and every kid is different. They learn different. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, different desires, different passions. I'm an anti-benchmark parent. So I had read a few things that helped me not be nervous when we made the jump to do it. I remember reading a study, boy, I should have tried to find it. It was a study that actually said that an adult who had the desire to could learn everything that was taught from 1st grade to 12th grade in a 6-month period, if they had the desire to do so. So I thought, well, even if I fail, they can learn it later.
Right?
So that took all of the worry and fear out of it. And the more we got into it and the more I realized I'm trying to think of the word, the conveyor belt system of public school, the more I realized they weren't going to be behind. Even if we schooled 1 day a week, we were not going to get behind. So.
And what about moms and dads who just feel like they barely finished high school, or maybe didn't even finish high school or whatever, that haven't had any college or anything like that. And they're like, I certainly wouldn't be a good candidate to be a homeschool parent.
Okay, so
Just worry about that.
I tell them is, you're their parent, you know your child better than anybody else does. Second of all, there's no reason to be scared to jump into this, even if you don't have, past a high school education. Heck, I would say even someone that didn't have a complete high school education. Because really with homeschool, you get to sit and learn along with your children. That's really what teaching is. And in fact, I had a wonderful college class. It was a math class that had the best idea for teaching concepts, and that was the teacher would teach it to us, but then we had to go and teach it to 3 other people, and then they signed off that we taught it to them, and then we brought that back to the professor. Now, really, that's what all of this teaching is about, is you being able to help teach it. So just in teaching it, you learn it, and then you just know it for the rest of the kids down the line. It really is a learn together opportunity.
It really is. But parents think, well, what if my children get behind? What if it's going to ruin their future career?
So a lot of those thoughts you can really just get rid of. People are capable of learning and acquiring knowledge and doing anything they want to when the desire and passion is there. So you may have children who there's zero desire, zero passion for, let's say, reading. Okay, so I had a son who just, reading was not his thing. And that he was the 1st grader at the time we pulled him out. And what I came to find out that they did, and this was because I volunteered in the class, is math time would come and they would take my son out and put him in a reading recovery situation with a counselor because his reading was atrocious. Well, according to their standards, remember, I'm talking their standards. So they took him out of math, put him out and, with himself out in a counselor and reading. And yet this kid was born to do math. This kid did not, so we pulled him out of school, and what this allowed him to follow his passion. He loves the math and the sciences and all of that. So pulling him out took all that stress and anxiety off of them trying to pound into his head this that they wanted him to do, And instead, he got to go and do what he was sent here to do, what he was meant to do and be. He's in college now. He didn't read till probably, it was about the end of 4th grade. Some people would hear that and they'd just about die. They'd be like, oh no, they're supposed to be reading by, the end of 1st grade. He still struggled as a high schooler even reading, but he's now sitting on the dean's list in his 3rd year of mechanical engineering. So really don't worry about them getting behind. As I said before, benchmarks and standards, I really think are baloney. They're just—
Well, not all children walk at the same time.
No.
Not all children are, even pick up things at the same time.
Right.
They'll pick them up later with say math concepts and spelling and being writers. Sometimes it takes a while for them to get into.
Yes, I had a couple graduate from high school. Like I had one who loved writing and she was fantastic at it. It was great. I had 2 others who absolutely struggled like none else with writing. We would do what I realized they could accomplish without wasting too much time on it. and it wasn't much. By the time they graduated, they were writing a paper. That's just what their concept of it was. But by the time they got to college and when they had to write, 3, 4, 5-page papers, guess what? They could do it because then they had to do it and there was more of a desire there. They were paying for this education that they were getting and they knew that they had to put forth even more effort to do it. But we still gave them the basics here at home to be able to do that. I just didn't sit at the table pulling my hair out and their hair out, trying to get them to do everything. We really focused on what their strengths were and let them run with it.
Well, and there really are a lot of children that it just takes longer for them to learn how to read, and some children have dyslexia and other things.
Yes.
And so maybe talk about that a little bit, because some people say, well, that's the foundation. You've got to have the children reading so that they can read these other books that are coming up. So how did you do that with your son? How did he keep learning during that time while he was picking up reading?
He had me who could read things to him because he is an audible learner. That's the other thing as a parent that you realize with your own children. They all learn differently. Some need to read it to learn it. Some need to hear it to learn it. Some need their hands just in it to learn it. And so
that's how I learn things. Yeah, you've got to, if someone's trying to teach me something, I'm like, okay, I've got to do it, even on my computer. Okay, let me do that so that I can, exactly. Yes. So you've got to have these different, know what the learning styles are. Yes.
And as their parent, and if they're schooling at home, you actually get to use the learning style that they learn best from. They can't do that at school. There's too many kids there, and too many standards and benchmarks that they're trying to make sure they reach, regardless of how they get there or what they put the kid through to get there.
So true. And then what about life skills also?
Oh, that's a great one. Okay, so to be honest with you, my husband and I were actually talking about this. Oh, I don't remember when. It was probably years ago. But we were talking about the difference between if we wanted kids who were intellectual or kids who were capable. And hands down, we would both take capable adults from intellectual adults any day. We actually have a great opportunity in our family because my husband is a builder. He builds homes. So our kids go out and start working for him when they're 7 or 8. And they work for him all through. His goal is by the time his sons graduate, they all know how to build a house. My son, who is in college, just finished building a house for him and his wife. He built it. He didn't hire a contractor. He was the one in there framing it and painting it and trimming it out and doing all his own concrete work and his roofing. But that's because he learned life skill, or learned marketable skills. So there is a little bit of a difference. We have marketable skills and we have life skills, both of which I think are not given enough time or weight in the public school system because they are spending so much time trying to get to those benchmarks, trying to get those standards covered. And so really what is being put on the back burner is life skills, you know, learning how to get along with others, learning to take care of yourself, being able to provide for a family, being able to raise a family, teach a family, you know. And so that's one thing that I think homeschooling really gives you. It gives you the time, for one thing, and the opportunity to really spend more time teaching these life skills and marketable skills. I think it's really important for kids to graduate high school with marketable skills, ready to go out into the world, not expecting that they have to get 4 to 6 more years of education, spend thousands and thousands of more dollars, go in debt, you know, all of that stuff. They should be able to graduate high school with marketable skills.
And don't you think skills such as, you know, a lot of them leave home not knowing how to prepare a meal for themselves, or
Right.
change a tire, or things like that. Well, you know, they passed all these tests and jumped through all these hoops. Maybe they don't remember the information anymore because they took that test and they were done with that. And now they are, you know, moving on to the next test. But yeah, don't you think that there are some things that are really important to know that just aren't being taught because of how things are?
I think
they know about dolphins and things, which, yeah, sure, that's great, you know, but.
Right. I think part of the problem comes because public school takes so much time. And really, if you go in and look at it, there is not as much accomplished in that time as there really should be, because it's near impossible. Between regulations, benchmark standards, all of those kind of things, it is truly near impossible. That was one of the reasons we took our kids out. We were on the way home from a wedding and we sat down and we penciled out the time. They got on a bus at 7:15. They got home at 4:05. But they didn't get home ready to spend time with us and learn those life skills. They got home with a pile of homework. I mean, even as a kindergartner, a pile of homework. They needed to go to piano lessons. They had clogging lessons. They had scouts. They had church. They had, you know, they had their chores. They, you know, work to do. So, and then dinner. And by the time everything was done, it was like drop in bed. So there was absolutely no quality time whatsoever to even do any of those things that you're talking about. When are you going to teach them how to cook if you're trying to have dinner on the table by the time they're done with their homework so you can run to clogging lessons?
Yeah.
It's chaos. So homeschooling gives you that opportunity because you can accomplish so much at home in even 2 hours. I think people would be just astonished at what they can accomplish 2 hours a day sitting there doing the book learning. Do you know how many hours a day that gives you for life skills, for marketable skills, for service? One of the best things our kids can learn is to serve, to be servants in their community, to help those in need, to be aware of those in need. They're so busy, they're not even aware of who's in need when we're, you know, in that other rat race. And we're all in rat races.
Time to look around and see what else we might be able to do, who we might be able to help.
Yeah, it's been the best blessing because we've been able to learn together. But since we learn together, we also have the time to serve together, to play together, and to work together. One of the most important things that we have worked on teaching our children is how to work. And to us, that is as important or more important than all of the book learning you could add up. They need to know how to work, do things for themselves.
Well, and in this day and age, you're not really allowed to, children aren't allowed to even take particular jobs. And so once they get out there, they can't do anything. You know, they aren't trained for it, and so then they're just starting into the workforce or into that world, I guess.
Well, it is really sad. You've kind of got us to a point where I can mention this, but I don't know if people realize our nation spends more money on education than any other country in the world. Do you want to know where we rank? It's not at the top. It's not even near the top. That alone should cause most of us to question, hey, what's going on here? Because like you said, they may be doing some book learning, but then they get out and there is no job that they, you know, can go and get based on what learning they have, because they don't have the skills to go along with the book learning.
I think we kind of think, though, that things must be figured out by the experts, and that public education must be the ideal and something that we need to probably follow and replicate, because that way children will get everything that they need if we do it the way that the public school system has been doing it. They obviously know more than we do, right?
No. Like I said earlier, you know more for you and your family than anybody else does. That's your job. That's your responsibility. And your kids are relying on you to be able to do what's best for them. The experts don't know everything.
You're the one who can receive that inspiration for them.
Yes. We really live in a time when it's important to stand up, even if you stand alone, for what you believe in and what you know is right for you and your family.
More and more so, don't you think?
Oh, more and more so by the day right now with everything that's going on. And I will tell you here and now that in homeschooling the kids, that has given them more of a backbone than they would have ever gotten in the public school system. It'll probably come out wrong, but in school, they're really taught to just go along, get along. Whatever anybody does, they're right. That's their, they can do whatever they want, think whatever they want, believe whatever they want. But we know that that's not how you run a society. There are rules. There are, morals to live by. And when you're not getting fed that day in and day out, you really can stand on your own feet. You really have your own belief system, you can rely on yourself to make decisions for your life. And I think homeschool, or the fact that they're taught here and not in that big, huge group setting with the group think and all of that stuff, I think they really learn to think for themselves and act for themselves.
Because don't you think there really is sometimes or that maybe an agenda was put in place even quite a long time ago, as far as how children should be socialized. And people are so worried about, that my child will turn out to be such a geek, if I homeschool them.
Yes.
And so there's a whole socialization aspect, but there's also the socialization of bells and following leaders, which can be a good thing, but just this kind of ingrainment also that happens. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know you're not afraid to.
Yeah, the socialization aspect is absolutely ridiculous. It's a completely false argument. Okay, so let's just...
Because one, though, isn't it? That we hear?
We hear it all the time.
I need to go and...
took my kids out of school. The very first thing that I just, parent after parent after parent, your kids are going to be socially backwards. They're going to be shy. They're going to be introverts. They're going to, they're never going to thrive around people. That is baloney. That is completely false. So here, let's look at it this way. How do you think the best way to teach social skills would be for a 6-year-old? Well, here's the way public school does it. They put a 6-year-old with a whole bunch of other 6-year-olds, and so they're going to teach each other social skills. 6-year-olds teaching each other social skills. Or wouldn't it be better if you had the 6-year-old sitting at the table along with the 8-year-old, the 12-year-old, and the 17-year-old, plus the parents, learning social skills and social acceptability from those who have had experience in that.
And so parents and grandparents, maybe aunts and uncles, maybe whoever, friends that come over to the house.
Mentors. Mm-hmm. We hired a tutor for years, and she was a great example for my children. Great example. She was a reading recovery specialist, but she was great. But yes, so the social argument is belonging, especially as with so many opportunities and activities these days, they get plenty of social interaction, but they're really learning social graces at home from their older siblings, from their mother, father, grandmother, and mentors.
And without the bullies, hopefully.
Right.
Which is a big thing in schools right now. There's a lot of bullying, and there has been in the past also. We all have seen that if we've been well, it's just a part of the world, I think, but it is a part of the public school system, because when you've got just one age group together or different age groups that way, and yeah, it seems to. But I don't see that kind of thing in our co-ops.
No. And if you do,
children, younger children getting together, getting along really well together.
It is rare, and it is something that where we are a smaller group and we are more aware, because these are all our own children, it is something that we can address immediately, take care of immediately. We didn't find out for years.
Fathers.
Yeah, as mothers and fathers. One of our children was being harassed at school inappropriately for a couple of years, and we never knew. Nobody ever told us. This was way back when. But still, I don't know. You couldn't pay me to go stick my kids in an elementary or a middle school right now. What we do in our families, we actually allow them as soon as they hit high school age, freshmen, then if they'd like to go take some classes at the high school, then they are more than welcome to. And so they pick which ones they'd like to do, and they go and take them. All of my kids have been different. We had one daughter who was very self-taught. She liked to just do everything on her own. She just took one extra class at the high school. Our son ended up enrolling full-time when he was a junior so he could get all of the college credits he needed. He's the engineer, so he's the one that needed or wanted to take advantage of all the college credits that he could get with dual enrollment courses. So he enrolled full-time. I had another son who loved the PE and the sciences, and another son who loves the choir and the PE. So,
there's definitely a purpose for public school and a place for it. There was a question. Oh, go ahead.
I think there's a place for it when they're older. I truly think kids, especially in the climate of our society right now, would just thrive so much more at home. Now, I have to be careful because I sound like I'm saying everybody should, and that isn't true. But a lot would. Not everybody, but more would than think so.
Yes. There was a question that came up about, well, what would happen if a whole bunch of people started homeschooling? What would that do to the public school system and the funding? Have you?
Now, public schools are funded per child, and that's why they want your child there every day, is because they get it's called ADA, it's the average daily allowance that they get per child if they're sitting in the seat that day. The funding, I think for schools, it would actually help them out because it would it would diminish the numbers in those classes. Classes are too full. Classes were too full 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're only more full now. So I think it'd kind of help if a few more chose to homeschool. I also think it would help kids as individuals. They could get away from, any of the bullying, anxiety. Some kids suffer extreme anxiety at school. They could get away from a lot of those things, things that, and again, I'm talking about kids and families who could actually do this if they tried. There are a few who know it wouldn't work for. There are family dynamics out there that it would not be a good thing.
And so it's really wonderful and also to have the self-sacrificing. A lot of times the teachers that do their very best with what they've been given. And my degree is in elementary education, and I saw all of the work that it takes to be a public school teacher, and just it's more than just coming to the school for teaching
right.
for the 8 hours. There's a whole lot more that goes into. You just think they get the summers off. Well, they're preparing. A lot of times they're spending their own funds and trying to do their best. But a lot of it was the management too that we learned, that was taught to us in college. The management of all the children, and not so much teaching of the subjects even, because
and the problem is they have to manage all the children, but they have to do so with their hands tied behind their backs. I feel for public school teachers. They have a very insurmountable task ahead of them, and their hands are just getting tied tighter and tighter behind their backs because of some of the things we're allowing here in society. So I wouldn't want to be a public school teacher. I like being a homeschool mom.
I had quite a few burned out teachers as a child who were not loving it.
Yeah, I think it's the system. I too do not blame the teachers. I blame the system. And I think it is a system that was put in place many, 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 many decades ago for some good purposes, but also for some not so good purposes. Public schooling is a great place to demand groupthink. It's a great place to indoctrinate. It's a great place to have everyone leave thinking the same thing.
And to put an agenda in place. Right.
There are a few things not so good. So I just am one of those who really believe that younger kids should be home with their parents. When I hear about preschool, or someone asking me, what I think about preschool, or what I think about even, what is it called for the 3 and 4-year-olds? Is that preschool too? I forget. But talking about putting a 3-year-old in school, I just want to cry and tell them, don't do that. Keep your child with you. You're their mother.
Follow those instincts when it doesn't feel right to send them off to kindergarten at 5 or 6 years old, and you're crying too. Maybe there's a reason for that. But but everyone's doing it. But maybe not.
It's too bad. I think it's a shame. I think young kids should be at home.
At least until they're 8, right? Where they can be learning their core values. That nobody can do that better than parents that have a solid core.
Right. Well, and then they still get to be a kid. I don't think kids are allowed to be kids anymore. They don't have time to be a kid.
And play, just go out and play with sticks and rocks.
I played with sticks and rocks.
Puppies. I made in their treehouse.
Rocks and leaves and you name it. And our kids they're not allowed to be kids. And I think they really need to get a chance to be kids. They need to learn, at a young age, they can start doing jobs and start learning to work, learn those core values of responsibility, honesty, integrity, kindness, compassion. They need to learn those in the home. It's
Things
really
that you
worth
need time for them, that they need time to learn.
Mhm. And they're not going to have time if you're going to send them off to preschool.
Exactly.
It's-
Well, so talk a little bit about allowing our kids to be on the path that they themselves were sent to be on, instead of the one that somebody else thinks that they should be on.
Well, what allows that is the fact that as a homeschooler, you don't have benchmarks and standards except for those that you set. And so that is why this has worked so well for us and why we can do that, because I'll have the kids who love the math. So they can spend their time in the math and pursuing that deeper and further and learning more about it instead of sitting there, pulling our hair out and crying over, trying to read a book. It'll come. It does come. I've seen it. I
And
had
vice
so many.
versa with math, right?
Oh, and vice versa. If they love the reading and they're in a book, every time you look at them and you're like, get over here, do your math. Let them read. They're learning a lot. As long as you have a home full of good books, then they're learning great things. The math will come. Things will come when they need to come. When they have a need to know something, humans are great at figuring out how to learn it. So why would we waste time, tears, and effort in trying to get someone to learn something that they're not ready for yet or don't need? And let's let them explore and be excited and happy in learning the things that they are ready for and that they do need at that time.
And I think that you have a story about that also, about allowing kids to be on their own path.
That would probably, actually I have a story for every kid. But I think I kind of told it earlier, was that son who they just said, he can't read, he's going to be behind, he's going to struggle, all of his school career. But he doesn't have time for math. He gets it, so don't waste any time on math. You got to get this kid reading. But we took him out. We didn't do that. We let him go. We let him fly with the math and the science, and we worked on the reading. We hired a tutor. She'd come in, twice a week and work on it. And it was a struggle. It took years and years, like I said, before he could read. And he still struggled with reading in middle school and high school. But he is excelling now because he's been allowed to excel. I don't know if that makes much sense.
Yeah.
It didn't come out, but and so
Right.
And now he needs the reading in some of his classes, so he does it.
Yeah. And has he started in the Commonwealth group? We have an older group also. Well, you were saying some of your kids have been doing also some high school
Yes.
classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what were some of the things that they like to do in the public school classes?
So of course, those are the classes that you don't really do well at home, either because of numbers, space, facilities. 3 of the ones that have hit high school have loved PE, lifetime sports, that kind of stuff, things that you go do as a group and things that are physical. They have loved to run in cross country. I had a daughter who loved photography, so she was on yearbook for a couple of years in high school. They have enjoyed the choir. I have 2 sons who have done choir at high school, which of course can't have much of a choir at home unless you have a lot of kids. And they all have to like to sing.
Yeah.
So choir is something that they've loved to do. Another thing that we do is I have them take science. We really don't do science. They can go and so I don't teach an actual science class for my kids. So I said that wrong. We do science. They do science all the time, but I don't actually teach it. The first science class they actually have is the one at high school as a 9th grader. And they've all done fine. They've all done well on their ACTs and, stuff they need to get into college. But we've just spent more time on life skills and just spending time learning together, serving together, and working together.
And so basically, as you said, just taking the reins back, I think is what you've talked about, and being the parent. Sometimes that's kind of a scary thing to do. You know, we kind of look to the experts, people that know more than we do. We've kind of done that all of our lives. Maybe we've kind of been trained to do that all of our lives, to just look at the experts rather than realizing that there's a lot that we have within ourselves.
We have been trained to look at others to make our own decisions. Most all of us have been trained to do that. Most all of us in this generation, I think most of us, were public school too. So we were trained up in the same ideology, the same, think what everyone else thinks. This is the way they taught history and this is what it is. And so, whatever opinion your history teacher had on it, that's the way you learned it.
And you better not answer the question wrong, even if you don't agree with it. Like, that's not what happened historically. And they're like, well, it is, so answer it this way. Jump through this hoop or you will flunk.
So that's why we kind of need to just get out of that box, stand back, and actually look at things. You are the parent. I am the parent. I do know my child better than any teacher there is.
And you
no matter how
more.
Teacher, I love them more. Their success is more important to me than anybody else.
You have a lot more invested.
Right.
Than any teacher does.
We need to actually be able to rely on that. We need to rely on the fact that we are their parent. And we have to rely on every blessing and every responsibility that comes along with that title. And we need to rely on the abilities we have as a parent also. Too many of us allow others to tell us what we can and can't do. And that is not all right. We need to be able to stand up as parents and, like you said, take the reins back. These are your kids. This is your family. So start acting like they are yours and your family, and you make the decisions for them. You pray about each and every one of them so that you know what is best for them. Some kids, public school is best for them. Other kids, it's not. We just, as mothers and fathers, need to be brave enough to kneel down and say, okay, which one's best for mine, and we're going to go for it.
And receiving that inspiration about whether this is right to do.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you'll change. You'll have things going, and then you'll realize, okay, we need to add this or get rid of this. It's just being aware. It's choosing to be aware and not getting so busy that you don't notice or you can't be aware. That's one thing that's really hard. Even homeschooling, it's really hard to not get too busy.
Right. It is. And to want to add this class or that class. And
mm-hmm.
So Kristi, what would you say in closing here to a parent who is just not sure? They're still kind of sitting on the fence, and they're not sure if they have what it takes to jump off and do it. And maybe just, would you talk about that for in closing?
Sure. I would tell them to quit worrying. If they've even had a thought that they need to pull their kids out, act on it. Just act on it. And you've just got to jump in and try. I mean, we can be held back from anything with fear. Fear and worry can hold you back from some of the greatest accomplishments you could ever have in your life. So we need to just let go of that and just go forward. There really isn't a lot to be afraid of. If you pulled a kid out of school for a year and really accomplished nothing and stuck them back in, they're going to be fine. People will tell you they're not. It goes back to, the schools will tell you they're not because they need that money. They need that ADA for that child every year, every day of the school year. But they'll be fine. You're not going to fail. They're not going to get behind. You'll be fine. That's what I want to tell them. There's such a support. That's the other thing, probably why they'll be fine. There is a huge support system for homeschooling and for homeschoolers. It just grows and grows and grows by the year. And so really, don't let your fears hold you back, because you probably have a great mission to accomplish. And if you have had the thought to do it, just do it. You'll look back and be so glad that you just jumped in and did it. You're not gonna hurt your kids. You're not gonna ruin their futures. You're not going to hold them back. You'd probably be surprised at how they may just start to thrive.
So you're saying that even if there's perhaps an inclination that maybe that's a sign that this is really something to look at and to start learning about and to dive right into then.
That's what I would say, dive right in. There's plenty of us out here that would be there to offer support, advice, help, a shoulder to lean on, you name it. That's what I've noticed about the homeschool community. Everybody's there to help everybody else.
Yes, and and there are a lot of families that you have mentored and helped along the way. And so is that something that that anyone in any area of the United States or anywhere out there could come and they could come to you and have you hold their hand a little bit or a lot through this process?
A lot of it is just assurance that it's okay. That's what I'll have. I'll have parents calling me and they'll say things like, okay, my second grader cannot read, or my second grader just can't get, this adding or this multiplication down or this. And that's most of the calls that I receive is my child isn't doing what I think they're supposed to be doing at this moment. And so mostly what I offer is the assurance that give them time. Keep doing the things that you feel like you're supposed to be doing. Keep teaching the things that you feel like you're supposed to be teaching. Keep offering them opportunities to practice life skills, to learn how to work, to serve others. These things will come. They may just be different from the kid next door or from their own sibling, but it will come, and don't get caught up in the when. Yeah. It will come.
And what a valuable thing to know, and sometimes that's just what you need, is that reassurance that it's okay, that all of these fears that you're having and all of these emotions, just continue forward and be helped in the process. From those around you, from mentors like Kristi, I'm there too if you need me, or others that are around you. And from the other side, from God, that you'll have the help that you need. So, well, thank you so much, Kristi, for being with us today. This has been so insightful and so helpful. And I know that it has the potential to help a lot of people. So I hope that I can get this message out there to different groups. And if those watching will share, that would be so great to just help to get this message out there. So thank you so much, Kristi, for being with us here today.
Thank you.